All right. Hello, friends. I am thrilled to be joined by Brock Brown. He is the president of the Black Student Association here at Oklahoma Baptist University, and Michaela Jessup, who is a senior. And remind me, Michaela, of your major here on Bison Hill.
I am a vocal music education major.
Excellent. And I wanted to have both of them on today because a couple of weeks ago, Brock, in his leadership role with the Black Student Association, led a protest, a solidarity march with the Black Lives Matter movement here on Bison Hill. And Brock, I want you to talk a little bit about your vision for the Black Student Association in coming months and what that's going to look like here at Oklahoma Baptist University, and also maybe your thoughts about the protest as well, since we're a couple of weeks out from that event. I think it was historic, and considering we were all marching in an inland hurricane, or at least it seemed like one, it was a great turnout. So Brock, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Professor Lloyd. I am certainly grateful for this opportunity to sit in to have this interview with you. I will say that in the days leading up to the protest, I was very anxious, to say the least. There were a couple of nights where I couldn't even go to sleep because I knew that on that day that I would, there would be some type of tension in the atmosphere. But that morning, I was able to get up. I was still feeling some type of way at that time. But the very minute that we started marching to Ready Chapel, and when we marched back, it proved to me that how much people care, because you don't have that many people that do anymore. So just to see people come out, because we had about 50 people in attendance in the midst of pouring rain, man.
Yeah.
In the midst of Oklahoma weather, we had 50 people come out in support of Black Lives Matter, and that to me struck a chord in my heart.
Yeah, I think it was amazing, given the weather. And when we say it was raining, it wasn't just raining; it was an inland hurricane. It was amazing.
The heavens were opening. The heavens were opening.
And I was thrilled that our president Heath Thomas joined us, and as well as our dean of students, Brandon Peterson. There were other faculty and support staff that joined us as well. And I thought that was really, really important for the future of the Black Student Association here on Bison Hill. So that was certainly encouraging to see that.
It was really encouraging to see not only the dean of students, but to also see the president, and just to see him also knowing that he cares and that he's willing to listen and to work with us.
Absolutely. Michaela, why don't you share a little bit of your thoughts as a senior? You've been here for, has it been 3-4 years? And tell us about what that day meant to you, and just some of your thoughts reflecting back on your time here at Bison Hill.
Yes. The day of the protest for me was definitely monumental. It really felt like we were making history on OBU's campus. I am a senior. I have been here the entirety of my undergrad career, and I've been a part of the BSA in some capacity since my freshman year. We used to have a post in the BSA called the freshman representative, and so that was my job in leadership freshman year. And sophomore year, we were practically defunct for most of the year, but and then getting it started back up and stuff last year. I was a part of that in the beginning, and now I'm just a regular old member, but it's really inspiring. It was really inspiring to see the amount of support we got, not only from students, because there were a fair amount of students there, but also from faculty. I really was not expecting the people who were there to be there. I have been used to seeing seeing our events not get cleared or not be supported by faculty or students alike sometimes. So it was definitely really heartwarming to finally see or to finally feel like there was real change that was going to happen on OBU's campus. Um, yeah, my time on Bison Hill has been mostly fine. It is definitely, I've definitely had like the uncomfortable situations that people of color experience when they're on a PWI that you just kind of can't avoid. Um, but I have always felt like I've had places that I can come to for refuge, and BSA has always been one of those places, along with like our gospel choir and things like that. Um, yeah, I really enjoyed the protest, and it meant so much because I had been a part of trying to get things like that off the ground since day one. It feels like. Um, And so seeing something finally come to fruition that we had been praying for and hoping for and yearning for on this campus was a really big deal. Um, it was just beautiful. And I'm praying that these things don't stop here, because OBU, we tend to have an event and go, yes, this event was good, successful, great. Black Lives Matter, we're on campus, we've made our statement. Now let's not talk about it again until February, or maybe not even February. Maybe let's not talk about it again until next calendar year or next school year. And that's obviously what we're trying to avoid. We want to see prolonged change. And I do appreciate that President Dr. Thomas seemed really like he really wants to make change and to make strides in the right direction. And he talked about installing a staff or faculty member into a new position at OBU, which I would love to hear more from him about at some point. But he talked about that, and that was really impactful to me, because we've had a dean, we have like our dean of students, and then under that we had, starting my freshman year, like the middle of my freshman year, we had a dean of like multicultural and diversity, and that job was basically axed in some of the changes we had campus wide last year. And so the concept of them doing it even bigger and better is also extremely encouraging. And it just gives me hope that like future Black students won't have to be as uncomfortable as I've been in some areas. So yeah,
Well,
it meant a lot.
absolutely. And I appreciate you honestly sharing your thoughts, because I think sometimes as white folks, we miss the experience of our Black counterparts, our Black students on a predominantly white campus. First of all, kudos for having the courage to come to a predominantly white campus, and then to not only come, but to be involved and to be leaders on our campus, especially during the time in which we all find ourselves living. But I certainly agree with you that it was encouraging to me personally to see Dr. Thomas there and Dean Peterson marching with us, not only marching with us, but chanting with us, and to actually chant with us Black Lives Matter. That was so important, just to show solidarity with this movement, right, across the country. And Brock, I was really encouraged by your leadership, because this was something that you shared with me back in the summer. You weren't expecting to be the president of BSA, and but God has a way of getting the right person at the right time, and I'm certainly convinced that His hand of providence was in that, as far as you're concerned. So talk a little bit about your vision for the Black Student Association. And I know that you were involved in protest in Oklahoma City over the summer, and that sort of inspired you to bring that to the campus here.
Right. I was able to attend protests back in my hometown of Oklahoma City. It was created, it was organized by a girl that me and my brother went to school with. And the first time being there and seeing at least a good 200 people on one street corner. I remember in Moore, Oklahoma, we were on that street corner. We were just chanting Black Lives Matter. And we walked down the street all the way to the police station, and us getting to tell our stories and our experiences of what it is to be Black, or what it is to be an ally to Black Lives Matter. Um, the second time wasn't the best because I discovered one thing, and if I didn't discover anything else, it was this: that the smaller the crowd, the larger the pushback can be. And I say that because the second time there were at least only 10 of us on that street corner, and you had, needless to say, a lot of the people were white, did not respond, did not, did not respond in a certain way. You had people flip us off, call us names. You even had one person even threaten our lives at some point in time. And just seeing that and seeing all this pushback coming at us just showed me that we're doing something right just by being on the street corner. And I thought to myself, if we can have a protest here in Oklahoma City, imagine a protest 35 minutes away in Shawnee, Oklahoma. So with that, that's where um, the idea of the protest came from.
Yeah, and I appreciate you sharing that vision with me, because I think, as both of you know, this is an issue that is that I'm passionate about, that I certainly care about, and I want to see change not only in our community, but I want to see change across our nation. And I think this is an issue that's been a long time coming, but I really feel like we are at a cultural crossroads, and that hopefully your generation is going to be the generation that is going to see real systemic change. Back in the 1960s, obviously, we had the civil rights movement led by Dr. King, and we saw a lot of progress. We saw a lot of change, but not enough change and not enough progress. Certainly with the events that we've seen this summer, the death of George Floyd, the death of Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and the list goes on and on and on. And even going back several years, this is something that has happened over and over and over and over again to Black people in our nation. And I think what your generation is saying, and rightfully so, that it's time to put an end to this. That it's a time to see real change, and that's what the Black Lives Matter movement is all about. And so, Michaela, I remember we were all standing there on the porch of Rayleigh, and I really appreciated what you had to say. And so, can you just elaborate a little bit on that? I remember you talking from an impassioned place about, now, you're speaking to younger generations that are coming up behind you. What would you tell them about Bison Hill and about your experience here at Oklahoma Baptist University?
Oh man, I feel like I could write them essays about the things I've experienced here. And I do want to encourage the future generations that not only is there change that's happening currently and that things are going to happen, but that there's always places and people on campus that do care about you, even if you feel like, or even if when you walk into the classroom, you're the only person that looks like you and you just want to sit in the back and sit in the corner and pray that your professor doesn't call on you on day one. That there are professors, and quite a bit of them, that want to establish relationships with you. And that's one of the best things about OBU, is that we come to everything from a Christ perspective, right? That's what we long to do as a Christian university, is to engage the world, and to engage the world from the gospel. And so even at times where I felt like I was sometimes being like directly discriminated against, I knew that there were people that I could go to on campus that I could just sit and I could just exist and be myself around, be it my friends or be it faculty members, be it staff members. There is a lovely lady on campus who, for the first 2 years of my time here, I would just sit in her office every day. And we didn't have to talk about big issues. We didn't have to talk about things that were going on. We could just talk about little things in daily life, and I would feel so much better afterwards. And so that's thing number one, is that there are people and places that care about you. And then thing number two would definitely be that this is a place that wants change. And once again, since we're engaging the world from Christ's perspective, we have to remember that racism at its root is a sin problem, but the way we're attacking it has to be systemically, right? So they have to understand that coming here is not just because it's a Christian university, doesn't mean it's going to be paradise and heaven. You're going to be in the OBU bubble, all right. You might not like everything you see in the OBU bubble, but you're going to be a part of it. And so you have to prepare yourself in that aspect, that I'm going somewhere that was not necessarily made for me. At its inception, was not a place where people thought that I could be one day. And that's just something that's important to remember. That change is coming, but change is slow, and change was not the vision at the very beginning. Change is the vision now. And so that's something that you have to engage with if you want to come to OBU. But mostly I think I would want to just encourage them that that Bison Hill is genuinely a good place. And I think that it's always been that way. I think it's always been a place that is filled with Christ's love, that we've just had trouble expressing it, at least to our minority communities. We haven't always known how to talk about things. We haven't always known when to talk about things. But I've definitely, in my time here, seen a real change, and just in the little things. Like whenever issues do pop up, our university generally addresses things. A lot of schools I know, be it public schools or private schools, they'll have an incident happen and then they'll just like quietly dismiss it and pretend it never happened. And the student body knows, because word travels no matter what it is. So people know. But when you never hear anything from the top, it gives you a distrust. It gives you a distrust of administration, and it makes you uncomfortable to be here. One of the things I'm proud of OBU for is that when things happen, we will at least talk about it. Absolutely. We will address uncomfortable things that happen in chapel. We will address uncomfortable things that happen on campus or on the internet by students that go here. OBU has always had that level of transparency, at least with the campus at large. And that's something that most schools don't have right now. And so it's really admirable. That's something I've noticed through this pandemic, is that OBU is very much willing to be transparent and to reach out. Whereas which I've seen some people online talking about their schools and how they just haven't heard anything, how they hadn't heard anything from when they left in March, and it was like July. I was like, that's insane. OBU sends me an email every week, and Dr. Thomas is sending us videos and posting to Twitter every week. And so, yeah, I just generally would want the future people come to Bison Hill to know that it's not all doom and gloom. Things are tough, and we are struggling, and we are fighting for change, but things are okay sometimes.
Yeah, and I think that's really, really important, because to me as a faculty member, one of the things that I value, and one of the things I know that we all value here on Bison Hill, is that feeling of community, that we're in this together, that we truly are endeavoring, even though historically maybe at times we haven't gotten it right, and even at times we struggle to understand what is happening in our nation, in our world. We do have that community where we are willing to listen. And one of the things, that I try to instill in my students is seek first to understand, so then you can be understood. And so we do listen to each other. But in the spirit of that, Brock, I'll direct this to you, and then Michaela, I'll let you follow this up. As a white professor, what is something that I can do, maybe something that we can do collectively to better relate, to better communicate, to better build bridges to our Black brothers and sisters that choose to come to OBU? When you're sitting in our classrooms, when we're having conversations with you, what's the best advice that you could give us as professors so that we can listen and learn to do better in these areas?
Well, I think the biggest thing, Professor Lloyd, for what the white professors to do is to just listen, is to allow, even if you don't agree, even if you don't agree what that person may be saying or what that person may believe, your job as of now, as of then, is to listen. And that's what I feel like that's what needs to happen is if if a person of color comes up to you and they want to talk to you and they have that much trust in you, listen. If they let them get out their feelings, because there are people that they cannot go to. They can't go to everybody and share their feelings, because if they do, sometimes that the stereotype of a angry black man, male or female comes out, and they are just complaining about something, which is not the case. We just need somebody who takes the time out of their schedule to listen to what we have to say.
Yeah, that's well said. Thank you, Brock. Michaela?
Yeah, I agree with listening. Listening is so important, especially right now. In the climate that we're in at the moment, it is just sometimes it's not easy to get out of bed. Just like waking up and knowing that I am who I am. I might, who knows what could happen because of who I am, to have to get up and go to class anyway. And sometimes that's just tough. And I know that like a lot of the times we see on social media and such that when an injustice happens, people want to play Sherlock Holmes or FBI and investigate exactly why this happened and what their life events led to them being murdered. Um, when in reality, us as Black people are often like, well, it's just another Black person killed, and it's this collective trauma that we live with every day that we just have to get up and go regardless of what's happening. And so sometimes I definitely walk into my classes and I just want to be listened to. So I definitely agree with Brock on that. If there was something I could add on to it, it would be not to use like the Christian buzzword of a few years ago, but intentionality. Um, you have to be purposeful in the conversations you have with students in general. That should be with any student you have a conversation with, right? But with students of color specifically, you have to be intentional with what you're talking about, and more importantly, how you talk about things. A lot of professors or people in general want to talk about things, and they either don't know how to, or they talk about it in such a way that it only further pushes back um, how their students of color may feel, or it just makes us uncomfortable. It's like some professors can't address things without giving their explicit opinion. And of course, we live in America, land of free speech, yes. But sometimes I think, just from, if I'm just like using my gospel mind, sometimes our opinion isn't needed. Sometimes what's needed is compassion. What's needed is empathy. Um, what's needed is mourning with those who are mourning. Sometimes what isn't needed is you getting on your pedestal and talking about how you feel about these things, because I know how you feel. I probably have read 8 different people's tweets saying exactly how you feel, and I've probably read 3 or 4 people's tweets saying exactly how I feel. But right now, want to be, I just want to be understood. I just want to be heard. So definitely intentionality in the conversation that you choose to have and the way you choose to present things. If you're going to talk about something in front of your class, make sure you know what you're talking about. So it's definitely a problem when white professors get up and they try to talk about something, and like that's not how that happened, or these aren't all the facts of the situation, which people love to say that facts don't care about your feelings, which isn't really applicable in all sense, because we are humans and we have feelings. We are beings that are made up of all sorts of feelings. And so, yes, facts can counter them, but in the end, we are what we are. And so they'll get up and say these things, and they'll give statistics, and you'll be like, okay, that's cool, I guess. but how is that relevant? And why did you feel the need to say that? So I feel like a lot of times when they throw out these statistics or they throw out their opinions, they're trying to, in some way, qualify or just quiet the situation, or like bring it to a see both sides, to a seeing both sides argument, when sometimes you don't necessarily in that moment need to see both sides. When emotions are so riled and tensions are like so heavy because of something that's just happened, as logical as the seeing both sides argument may be, no one is going to accept that from you in this moment. All they're going to hear is, you don't care about us, you don't care about what we're saying or what we're feeling, and then you're going to get a label which you do not want from your students, like racist or ignorant, and just other things that I've heard people talk about professors here as, because they chose to talk about something at a time where in which it was not the time, or in a way that wasn't quite appropriate for the situation. So intentionality is key for me.
Thank you for that. I think that's so good, and that's so very helpful, because I understand from a middle-aged white man's perspective that I'm still learning, and I still have a lot to learn, especially when it comes to these issues. And I think it's so important what both of you said about listening and being intentional, because sometimes we want to excuse somebody's experience or dismiss their experience, or try to steer their experience as something else, like, well, that really didn't happen to you, and what they meant was this, right? And so that's totally inappropriate, especially
Gaslighting.
when we're dealing with the issues of race, especially at this time. And what I encourage my white peers to do, with people of color, with Black people specifically, this is a time to empathize. This is a time to listen. This is a time to, after someone shares their heart, it's not even necessarily the time to ask follow-up questions. It's a time to say, you know what? There's a lot that I can't understand about that, but I want to understand, but now's not the time. I want you to know that I'm here for you, that I love you, and that I'm praying for this situation, and that all of us, right, are praying for justice. We're all praying for equality. We're all praying that the sin of racism will be eradicated from our nation and from our communities. And we want to take action to see to it that happens. And so I appreciate both of you articulating that so beautifully. Brock, when we think about the future of the BSA under your leadership, I know that you've shared with me that you really want to expose our student population to understanding Black culture. What are some of the things that you guys are talking about within the BSA on how to do that here on Bison Hill?
Well, one of the things that we plan, that we're talking about, is to have a conversation just for a night. One night we would meet somewhere, and we can invite, this will be an open invitation for all students, all faculty, all staff to come in, and we would invite some of the alumni back. We would invite current students to, if they have a story, they would come in and they would share their experience, what it means to be Black on a PWI. And at the end of their experience, of them sharing their experience, everybody in the room would say this particular kind of affirmation that we heard you, we're sorry that this happened to you. And that's the concept of the conversation that I had during the summer when I was invited back to my old high school as an alumni to speak on my experiences from being racially profiled, from being told that I was dark, that was too dark, saying that I acted white, all these different types of stereotypes and microaggressions and macroaggressions, and just exposing what Black people go through to the students, faculty, and staff on OBU's campus. Another thing is just simply having events that, hey, where we may be talking about this, but I want you all to experience, what it is to, you know, to enjoy, that we can have this time of fellowship, that we're talking about BSA and SGA having the cookout together at some point in time. And I'm pretty sure this will be an open invitation for all the students, faculty, and staff to come in. We would even invite some of the local churches. I know when I told my pastor, Pastor Joe Fields, he was excited because he wanted to light up that smoker and cook some barbecue. He was excited. And so just with that, I just that's just my goal, is to have OBU understand we are here. And I want you to understand my culture, where I come from. I want you to understand me.
Yeah, that's well said, and that's exciting times, and I appreciate your passion and your vision, Brock, and thank you both for sharing today. I think this is really, really good. It's so important. We're having this conversation publicly, and we'll share it for everyone to see, but it's so important that these conversations happen privately across our campus in safe places where people can be honest with one another, that they can feel like they're being heard. And so thank you both so much for your work, for your efforts here on Bison Hill, and just the blessings for your future. Well, thank you both very, very much. I appreciate you being with us today, and just thank you so much.